So Abu Bakr will come in the ranks of the best of the Ummah with respect to giving. He was Jawad. And Allah blessed him with wealth. He was wealthy. And he had that nature to spend in the cause of Allah. We have seen a few amongst the Muslims, the wealthy Muslims today, that spend on the poor. But you cannot compare the extent. You just want to imagine someone having, as an example, someone having like 20 billion USD. And you have a cause of Islam. And the person gives the entire amount in the cause of Islam. It's strange. You find today people who are quite wealthy, that it becomes a thorn in the flesh for you to even get the zakah from them. Get them to pay the zakah. I've had interaction with some people. The person will tell you, I once listened to a prominent person, rich Muslim, that said what he gives out in sadaqah is much more than what he gives out in zakah. So he doesn't feel obliged to want to pay the zakah. Say, no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not asked you compulsorily to give sadaqah, even though it is good, it's for your own good. But Allah will ask you regarding the zakah. Abu Bakr was not just a leader that gives zakah. He was someone that will even spend the entirety of his wealth towards the well-being of the Muslims. So, it wouldn't just be called a big man, because this is someone that would spend everything that he had in the cause of the religion of Allah, in order to support the religion of Islam. So that speaks much more to, I don't know anybody that can be in the class of Abu Bakr. In our own time, even those who are the best of this ummah, they cannot match up with Abu Bakr. In our own time, you can never see anybody that can match him. Wallahu alam. I think one of the ways is what we are doing now. We need to create awareness about the person of the Prophet and his companions. Let people get to know about those who are our forebears, our pious predecessors, and take lessons from their lives. Many people are ignorant about our companions, and that's why people will typically take footballers or all these musicians as role models, because those are the people they can see and relate with. But if you're able to also create avenues to let people know about these personalities, the companions of the Prophet, it endears the heart towards them. And you also want to replicate, because we are also striving for the same thing they were striving for. They were striving for the paradise. So if you know that those who are foremost have done this and this, or much of this goodness, then perhaps you want to strive a bit more, just to encourage yourself. Even though we might not be able to meet up with them, but the point is, you strive, because this religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a religion that will remain until eternity. And that also means that we as Muslims, we need to strive to also meet up with some of the qualities that we see in the companions. So when we talk more about them, share the good benefits and the points of benefit from their lives, it will be a good one for those who are coming in the later generation also to take lessons from them. Okay, so what I think the goal of Abu Bakr will have been with respect to the fasting of Ramadan will be exactly the goal which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set for us to achieve with the month of Ramadan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. That fasting has been ordained for you as it was ordained for those who were before you, solely for the goal of attaining piety. So, those who are pious forebears, at the top of which was Abu Bakr Siddiq, understood the import of religious obligations. They understood the intention, the objectives of religious obligations. So when it comes to the fasting of the month of Ramadan, they understood well what they were supposed to achieve by exercising or fulfilling all the obligations of that particular month. So my thought would be that the goal of Abu Bakr from Ramadan will exactly align with the goal of the Creator of the universe for the month of Ramadan. And that is to attain piety. And how do you attain piety? And what exactly is the piety that we're talking about? It's just with respect to obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing as much of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded, and abstaining from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden. So that exactly would have been the goal of Abubakr Siddiq. And that was his goal with respect to his carrying out religious obligations. And as Muslims, that exactly should be our goal. Ramadan is meant to be a period for us to revitalize, a period for us to replenish our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We've done some 11 months, and a particular month has been set aside in order to reinvigorate ourselves, our spirits, and energize us for the next 11 months. So the companions, or our power predecessors generally, they used to be extremely happy whenever Ramadan is coming. And whenever Ramadan is closing out, they used to be sad. So because of what they understood from the importance and the benefits that is inherent in the month of Ramadan, aside from the fact that the good deeds you do in this month, the reward is going to be multiplied, you also have that there's some calmness about Ramadan. The fact that you are even more conscious. The fact that you know you are fasting, you are more conscious of what you want to look at, the kind of statement you want to utter. Even the Prophet had mentioned that the one whose days of fasting is not different from his other days, then perhaps Allah has no need for his fasting, for keeping away from eating and drinking. When you know you are fasting, you want to restrict yourself. Certain, as a Lagos driver, you drive in Lagos, sometimes you meet with these people that drive very awkward, and oftentimes you want to be tempted to want to say some words. If you are fasting, you want to keep calm, because you understand that you don't just say anything, you don't just look at anything. So that level of consciousness is what is expected for us in Ramadan and even outside of Ramadan. So the experience of the companions were loftier, were much more, were greater with respect to the spiritual aspect than those of us today. And that was the goal they set for themselves. They wanted to achieve closeness and nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of the avenues that will afford them that opportunity, they explored. So that exactly will have been the goal of Abu Bakr. The first thing, perhaps maybe I would say the easier way to answering that question will have been that Abu Bakr lived during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. He saw the Prophet, he communed with him, he related with him. That is not to take away from the fact that if many of us today, if we had lived during the time of the Prophet, I'm sorry, many will have been munafiqun. Many will have been hypocrites. Because sometimes the way we relate with the statement of the Prophet, it's not so encouraging. You tell someone that, okay, it's the Prophet that said this, the Sunnah of the Rasul, and they just commonize or they denigrate, look down on it, that Sunnah was Sunnah. Abu Bakr and the rest of the companions were not like that. They understood the statement of Allah regarding the Rasul sallallahu that وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. He doesn't speak of his own volition, his own aqad. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Everything that he spoke was a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they were convinced of the message of the Prophet because they saw him, they related with him. They understood from where he came from. It was not from the people that are only interested in the material gains or what is in the hands of the people. That was not the Rasul. So Abu Bakr understood that he lived his life for Islam. So for us today, I think we need to start from where they started from. The Prophet, for the majority of his mission, what he was calling people to was Tawheed. So when they had very solid foundation in Tawheed, it was easier to build on it. The unfortunate thing today is many people today are Muslims merely because they were born into Muslim families. So they have not really done the needful in trying to understand their Islam. So you have people who are just Muslims by name, who never really understood or do not really understand the objectives of Islam or the truths of the message of Islam. And that's why whenever you have you ask Muslims to want to engage in some of the objectives or some of the obligations of Islam, they might not really find that interest because the strength of faith is not really there. So, from what we can learn from the life of Abu Bakr is that conviction, the fact that he understood the message of the Prophet ﷺ and he sought to protect the Prophet and protect that message. Wallahu a'lam.